February 24th of this year, the New York Times reported that film producer Harvey Weinstein of Miramax had been declared guilty of first-degree criminal sexual assault and third-degree rape. The allegations against him launched not only a conversation about abuse of power in the workplace, but about Hollywood as a whole, on how its most famous stars, especially women, lived in fear of losing their prestige, all because they would not do what a powerful, corrupted man would tell them to do. And this abuse goes much further than how much of a monster Harvey Weinstein is. I mean, today you can argue that we ask each other what we're watching as much as how we're doing or what our job is. And to peel back the curtain on such an exclusive image revealing rampant exploitation is terrifying, because film has dominated our casual culture for decades and likely will do so for decades to come. Since the beginning of the film industry as we know it in the 1920s, actors have become some of the most celebrated and most exploited people in the world. And behind this is a prestige largely generated by Hollywood higher-ups. Oftentimes, the way those higher-ups achieve and maintain such an image is through less than respectable means. Now, before we get into how modern Hollywood uses its stars to produce a facade, it's essential to know that this is absolutely nothing new. During the golden age of Hollywood in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s, actors signed to studios such as MGM or Paramount were bound to that studio for a number of years. And that amount of time had to be working. You couldn't be signed for 7 years and take a year off in the middle of it. It was not until December of 1944 when a California Court of Appeals ruled that a contract of 7 years must mean 7 calendar years. The law is affectionately known as the de Havilland Law, after actress Olivia de Havilland, who brought it to court in the first place. And while she brought monumental progress in performers' rights to fruition, others were not so lucky. I think among the best examples of an old Hollywood tragedy is the story of Judy Garland. And if you've ever looked into her career history, you might know that she was already signed to MGM by the age of 13. By her late teens, the pressure put on her by studio executives, the media, and rigorous production schedules had caused her to become an addict. Louis B. Mayer of MGM allegedly referred to Judy as his little hunchback, according to The Telegraph, in an article that compares Mayer to Harvey Weinstein. Her health issues often caused filming to run longer if she was not replaced entirely, despite her great talents. When Judy died in 1969 at the age of 43, the LA Times published an article in which she was quoted saying, "Sometimes I feel like I'm living in a blizzard." When a child is placed into this machine, and they're more impressionable than they are at any other age, the amount of pressure and attention is going to leave irreversible effects on their way of living and thinking. And Judy is likely one of the earliest and most famous examples of this. But you could argue the same for people like Drew Barrymore, Macaulay Culkin, or more recently Miley Cyrus, who all found fame at young ages and struggled with addiction a few years down the road. And while these young stars encountered toxic situations that they had little to no control over, so did some of the actresses working under Miramax. The Academy Awards are a great example to use when discussing exploitation in Hollywood, largely because Harvey Weinstein was known for his aggressive Oscar campaigns. Now, winning an Oscar does come with prestige, but they also bring your movie extra money, more than it likely would have made otherwise. The 2020 Best Picture Award went to Parasite, a South Korean film which became the first movie not in the English language to do so. According to Box Office Mojo, Parasite grossed an additional $513,000 the day after it won Best Picture, a 213% increase when compared to the same day a week before. You could also argue that Harvey had somewhat of an unhealthy obsession with what this little gold statue represents, even though this is obviously not a real Oscar. And he's not alone in that. When referring to Harvey Weinstein in her video on the 1999 Academy Awards and Gwyneth Paltrow's Best Actress win for Shakespeare in Love, film historian and YouTuber Be Kind Rewind states that his success was so pervasive that most of Hollywood seemed willing to overlook his abusive behavior just to get in on it. And if you look at everything from acceptance speeches to late night interviews, this rings somewhat true, but was treated as a sarcastic joke. In 2012, Meryl Streep won a Golden Globe for playing Margaret Thatcher in The Iron Lady. And in her speech, she jokes, "I just want to thank my agent, Kevin Houvain, and God, Harvey Weinstein, the Punisher." Newsweek reports that on a list of people thanked the most in Oscar speeches, Harvey Weinstein actually ranks higher than God. And this running joke was maintained until arguably 2017, when Time magazine published their now famous article with allegations about Harvey's behavior, among these being Cate Blanchett and Angelina Jolie. As a smaller detail, Harvey's ex-wife Georgina Chapman is a fashion designer and co-founder of the brand Marchesa, which you might recognize the name of if you pay attention to award show fashion. Multiple accounts show that Harvey pressured women into wearing some of his wife's designs, among these being Jennifer Aniston. Details like these are small, but a significant insight into Harvey's desire for control and the fear he might have instilled in the people who worked for him. In the grand scheme of things, 2017 might have been 3 years ago, but stories of abuse continue to be released to the public to this day, not just about Harvey. And on an earlier point, film has dominated our casual culture for decades. And people like Cate Blanchett, Angelina Jolie, and Miley Cyrus are all still working in Hollywood. And to have such rampant greed in something so dominant makes us question not only what's behind our favorite films and TV shows being made, but also what the standard is for something to be looked up to. And that can be applied to any industry. Thank you.